brothers and sisters. It's good to be with you again to share with you Daily Manna. Trust that you're still looking to the Lord for His help in all that you encounter, and not to rely on your own understanding, but place all of your faith and trust in Him. I'm going to share with you verses 37 of chapter 21 of Acts, all the way through chapter 22 and verse 5. So let me read these verses for your hearing. As soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, "May I say something to you?" "Do you speak Greek?" he replied. "Aren't you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the wilderness some time ago?" Paul answered, "I am a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people." After receiving the commander's permission, Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the crowd. When they were all silent, he said to them in Aramaic, brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense." When they heard him speak to them in Aramaic, they became very quiet. Then Paul said, "I am a Jew born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city. I studied under Gamaliel and was thoroughly trained in the law of our ancestors. I was just as zealous for God as any of you are today. I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison. As the high priest and all the council can themselves testify, I even obtained letters from them to their associates in Damascus and went there to bring these people as prisoners to Jerusalem to be punished." Paul speaks, first of all, in this passage to the commander. And he speaks with this question, "May I say something to you?" This commander has an awful lot of clout, an awful lot of power, so Paul is very careful about how he responds to him. And this commander wants to know whether or not Paul speaks Greek. And he then replies, "Aren't you that Egyptian that led some rioters, some protesters a while back, and led them out into the wilderness?" In other words, they was causing some disruption in the city against the Romans. And Paul quickly says, "No, I am a Jew born in Tarsus." And the commander quickly realizes that he was not speaking to an ordinary criminal, that Paul was a well-educated man and was able to speak fluent in a number of languages. And so Paul quickly lets the commander know who he was. And not only that, as we look at this particular passage, the commander gives Paul permission to speak to the crowd. But could I ask your question? What do you say to a mob or to a crowd that just tried to kill you? That's been a very difficult thing for anyone to do, but Paul was able to master this situation. And I know it was not all by himself, done by himself. that he relied on the Lord, who's the source of all wisdom. And of course, the Lord, I'm sure, gave him instruction in terms of what he should say to the crowd. So in a sense, it's Paul's defense. Wants these people to know who he is, that he's no criminal, that he is a representative of the Most High God. And so he begins in verse 1 of chapter 22. It says, "Brothers and fathers, listen to my defense." And when he began to speak in Aramaic, there was quiet, and they began to listen to what he had to say. I don't think they just listened with their ears. I believe that they also listened with their hearts. They wanted to know from this man themselves who he was, that he was not that person who had told the people, the Jews among the Gentiles, that he asked them to steer away from Moses, not to circumcise their children, or moved away from the customs of the Jews. So Paul lets them know that his background, that he had persecuted the Christians who followed the way, capital W-A-Y. Many times, my brothers and sisters, there are misunderstandings that come about in the church because of lies, because of rumors. You see, the church is not exempt from trouble. Remember, Jesus himself said, "In this world you shall have tribulation, but I have overcome the world." We must always be careful. We must always be on guard for misunderstandings to occur among believers. But make certain when they do occur that we solve them through the wisdom of the Word and the Lord Jesus Christ. There should always be harmony among believers, but when it's not there, we ought to do whatever we can to fix it. Remember, Paul talked about those two women who were at odds with one another for whatever reason, and asked them to fix it. And that's what we must do. But always remembering the Lord Jesus Christ and what he would have us do in times like that. Always leaning and depending upon his wisdom. Sometimes we hurt people with the tone of our voices. We have to be real careful of that and apologize when you know that you have done wrong. I would imagine the people hearing Paul talk about his background and how he persecuted Christians were surprised about his confession. But in the next section, though, we'll look at tomorrow, where he's going to revisit his conversion experience. In the meantime, hold on to God's unchanging hand. Build your hopes on things eternal. Hold to God's unchanging hand. God bless you. God keep you is my prayer.